I think it's getting our heads around what it actually means, because being a mission community has got to be significantly different from just being a team ministry, although really we should have been doing that anyway. So mission has got to be at our core of everything we do. So looking at how we go to the community rather than the community comes to us, I think, is part of it. Yes, we are a church community, but in mission terms, we have to be in the community. So looking at ways practically we can be doing things in the community and being the church, rather than perhaps expecting the community to come to us, which I think has possibly been people's mindset up to now.
So it's about doing things differently.
It is about doing things differently. It's about looking at everybody's skills and abilities. It's a real opportunity to look at the church as a body. Last Sunday I was saying to somebody, it was a real gift, the reading. It was 1 Corinthians 12 about the body of Christ, and that's what we are. And we all say that, but in fact we forget that without one or two people's skills, the body is lacking something. So one of the things we've got to do is to be very alert and be forward thinking and actually discerning what gifts people have and encouraging them to use them and helping them to grow them, because often people won't come forward because they're a bit shy, or maybe they don't even recognise the gifts they have. So a big part of the mission community is looking at how we can become a whole community in mission and encourage people with those skills and help train people so they have the confidence to use them. Well, it started well over 4 years ago, when we were looking at the Green Book and growing disciples and what mission action plans would actually mean. And so we started a process of taking very seriously mission action planning in every single one of our parishes, as they then were, looking at the marks of discipleship and how we were going to carry those out and how we were going to take those forward. Through that process, it became very apparent that we couldn't do everything, and we couldn't do some new things and carry on with some of the old things. It also became apparent that we were short on resources. I'm not talking about money now, I'm talking about people resources, because you can't ask somebody to do something if they're already doing something else. You're just overburdening people. And through that process, we realised that administratively we could cut down on some things. So instead of having a treasurer that was struggling in every parish, instead of having a safeguarding officer that was struggling in every parish, could we manage by having those jobs shared better? And then we came round to the annual meetings. Was it a good use of my time to go to 11 annual meetings in a month? Well, everybody said no, it wasn't. Through that process, after about 3.5 years, we started looking at about becoming one parish, which wasn't how we started off by any means. But in doing that, it meant we would share skills, resources, and be able better, therefore, to use the resources we had to do the new work we wanted to do in our mission action plan. So for us, last October, we actually became one parish. It didn't mean that our churches wouldn't be parish churches anymore, because they are, and all our churches are significantly different and do different things, and we wanted to hold that diversity. So that's part of what we did, but in doing that, it meant that we were sharing things together. We met together more regularly as a whole team, as a whole ministry. People shared their concerns, and suddenly they found that actually their concerns were other people's concerns, and if somebody had a solution to it, they could share that solution. The ways in which people were doing things, whether it was with children, whether it was new work in the community, all that was being shared. And slowly, from being a team in name only, people really became a body doing things together. And that's the point when we started moving forward to be a mission community, in that we really were a community, and mission really was at the heart of everything that people wanted to do, and was a real desire for the people in our churches to be doing mission in their communities. I think things have already changed somewhat, because over the last couple of years a lot of my role has been strategy, planning and vision. One of the things, we brought in 2 more parishes, so how did we actually incorporate them, and what was the strategy for making them part of the family? But if you look at the mission community job description, it is very much somebody that holds the vision for the community and ensures that that vision starts to come to fruition, thinks about the strategy, thinks about coordinating it, thinks about how people can be trained, how people can be brought in, rather than just thinking about the nitty-gritty everyday things. So we've appointed a part-time team administrator, which actually takes some of the administration off us, but also enables new projects to happen, because we didn't want an administrator just doing the administration. We wanted new things to happen because we had someone. We've appointed a team treasurer, so that that person can actually help all those churches with their accounts and actually take on the burden of doing them for them. So again, that's something that often I would get involved in doing. I don't need to worry about that now, somebody else is doing it. So I manage them and support them, but they actually do the work. We look at how we do pastoral visiting. We've commissioned people to be pastoral visitors. So I've done the training for that, but they've been commissioned by the bishop. If somebody needs a visit, they are usually the people that go out and do it. But it also means that we can be very aware of people that need visits in the community. It's all very well saying to people, you can have a visit, but if you've got no one to go, you've actually failed. But now we're able to look more widely, who's lonely, who perhaps just needs that bit of encouragement, and someone from the church can go and visit them. And it doesn't have to be me. It doesn't mean I won't do any visiting. Yes, I will, but it doesn't have to be me, it doesn't have to be my ordained colleagues, and sometimes it's more appropriate for us not to. The same thing with leading worship. With 12 churches on a regularly used in this team, and 2 statutory staff, I've actually got 2 other curates, but 2, myself and a vicar, how are we actually going to ensure that worship happens, that worship is enabled in all the places where people want to have worship, because we're determined that all our churches will be used and centres for worship. So we've been looking at people who are willing to be trained up and have the skills to lead worship. And we've started doing that, and people have really rejoiced that they've had lay people who are confident enough to lead worship and give a homily. Yes, they're not allowed to preach, but they can use something else instead. And we've just got another 4 people going through that process. So again, it's looking at who is around, enabling the people in the body to be the body. So I see my role very much as discernment, as a visionary, as a strategist, and as a trainer. Now, in some mission communities, maybe the mission community leader won't have skills for training, but they'll be able to find other people that do it. So that does have to be very much what they do. And really just keep the enthusiasm there. You've got to have enthusiasm and passion yourself, so making sure that stays. Collectively, I think it's been thinking differently, because for years and years, the vicar has done the job, and back in people's minds, whether it was true or whether it was just history, they would see their church or their parish with their vicar. And people will talk about that, oh, can't we have our own vicar back? And that's been hard, because while people think like that, it's very difficult for them to move forward in a different way. But this team has been a team for quite a long time. Bits have been added onto it over the last 10 years, but they have been thinking team, and that has been a real advantage here. It hasn't been a disparate group of parishes just brought together. They have been working together, albeit perhaps not as closely as they could have done, but they were working together, and that's been a real advantage. So people could see that. I think as clergy, it's actually thinking about doing things differently, not having your own patch. So thinking, working as a team. So we do work as a team. I think that's sometimes quite difficult. If you live in a place, maybe you feel that you ought to have more loyalties to that place. But actually you can't do that very easily if you're going to work over a wide range of churches and parishes. And that has been difficult, and I think that's been difficult personally, because you all feel you want to belong somewhere. Being intentionally missional has to be a mindset, but it's also got to be a positive activity. So how can we be church in a different way? But it's also looking at how we can set up church communities in a different way. So we have a cafe church in IRB, meets once a month. It was in existence before I came, but we're looking at how that can grow and bring in new people. Our curate has started something for baptism families, because we take baptism preparation very seriously, and we want to include those families as part of the worshipping church. But being realistic, some of our worship on a Sunday isn't easily accessible to people with young children. Sometimes it's at the wrong end of the day, because we've got a lot of dairy farmers here and they can't get to an 8 o'clock service, and 9:30 is actually quite difficult for them too. So we've set up a couple of groups, one in Fletchertown and one in Bothell, for mothers and children to come to. Yes, it's a mother and baby or mother and toddler group, but that's intentionally church-based, and we hope that that may work out as a fresh expressions of church, and we'll grow into that. We have a youth group, which is definitely a fresh expression of church, in that that is their church, they meet together, and these are youngsters that have come through the confirmation process, because the way we've done confirmation is to have virtually all the confirmation practice or preparation before the confirmation, but there's been 2 that they've had to attend after the confirmation, which shows them that this is something they're going to continue in a Christian journey, and they've been brought into a youth cell and they meet regularly together, and they are very much the church in that place. We're also looking at other groups that actually meet perhaps in church premises or with a church connection, to see if actually they could become fresh expressions of church. Is there a craft group that meets regularly? Yes, there are. People there talk about some of their concerns. A lot of them meet with church people. Is that something we could develop into a fresh expressions of church? How can we do that? Other things we've done and will continue to do, like on Maundy Thursday, which is coming up quite soon. We have a very traditional Maundy Thursday service in one of our churches, but we also have an agape supper, and that always happens in one of our village halls. And 60 people usually come, who wouldn't necessarily come to a church service, but they're coming because it's a supper, but they take part in something like that. It's looking at new ways of doing things. How can we look at our rural environment and take on what we do in rural communities and use that as part of our church witness? So it's trying to be inventive and looking at things like that. The key one is communication. That's where things are let down. You think that everybody knows what is going on, and you think that the message has got across, but in fact it hasn't, because people will say, I didn't know anything about this, and you'll sit there and you think, actually we discussed this at a PCC, or you're at that meeting. So there cannot be too much communication, there cannot be too much involvement of people. You know, I think we're reluctant to get people to come to meetings, and I think sometimes people say, oh, another meeting, but we've had an awful lot of them, bringing different groups of people together, whereas the treasurers or the team council or the church wardens, so that we could talk through this. It could be their plan, it would be their model of mission community, it would be their way of doing it, something that they really wanted to do. So communication, I would say. I think there is excitement. There's also this feeling of intrepidation. What does it actually mean? What are we actually letting ourselves in for? I think everybody knows that this is really a springboard. It's not a matter of, well, we've done all this. We have done an awful lot. We've come into one PCC. We can't just sit and put our feet up. This was all done for a purpose of going forward. And I think there's a sort of a anxiety, what does going forward actually mean? But actually that can be quite exciting too. So for a lot of people, they say, we're not quite sure what the future holds. Other people say, it's great, we're doing this. So, you know, mixed feelings really. The doing is going to be linked and is linked to our mission action plans. So the very first, well, we've had one PCC of the new PCC, but the second PCC meeting is actually next month. And what we will be doing is looking at our overarching mission action plan, so that we can look at it together and say, what are we doing? What takes us forward? What is truly missional in this? And how do we take it forward? So there's a strategy in it. And it will be from those mission action plans that are quite different in different churches that we will be taking the mission forward in that place. Yes, there's an overarching vision, but the way that it will be practiced will be significantly different in different places. I think it happens by doing. It's interesting, I went to a village breakfast last Sunday, and it was only really because one of our bridges was shut that I managed to go to that, because I couldn't go somewhere else. And I was talking to a couple of people there about being in the mission community, and one of the farmers said, oh, can I come along to the service? This sounds really exciting. So it's actually in talking to people, people are saying, this is a new way of doing things, this is good, you know, and people are talking to me about it and saying, what does it really mean? What does it mean for us? I think the fear factor was, for some people, how does this going to affect people in the villages? Does it mean it's not their church anymore? And once we got over, yes, of course it is their church, all our churches still will be parish churches, so practically those things will not change. But also, practically, things will change in that perhaps we will have more time to do things in the community, and the church will be seen in the community more. I mean, that's the hope. Within this team, we only have one other partner, in that we have a Methodist chapel. For years we've been doing things with the Methodists, and the Methodist chapel have appointed 2 people on the PCC to be full members of the PCC. One of the Methodists is one of our pastoral visitors. So we are showing that we're doing things ecumenically. Our last team service we actually had in the Methodist chapel, and we used the Methodist service. So we're very much trying to say practically and visibly we are doing things with our partners. So that was the first thing I'd want to say. It's an ecumenical service. Our Methodist leaders and the URC leaders will be present at that. And it's a commissioning of the community. And we wanted to get away from the fact that it was the clergy being commissioned. Yes, I'm going to become the mission community leader, but it's the whole community that are going to be standing up and being commissioned. Our local mission community leaders will be standing up in that service and will be commissioned as mission community leaders in their places. But the whole of the Binsey team will be asked at one point in that service to commit themselves to being the mission community in this place. So it's a whole community service, and that's really what we wanted to do. A celebration of what we've done, but a commitment to going forward together. Do you know what? I haven't really thought about it. It has been so busy in actually getting to this stage. It hasn't actually hit me that we are the first. I suppose in some ways it has, because we've had to do everything from scratch because there's been nothing done. Ask me in a month's time. I think that is something we've all got to do. In this archdeaconry, the archdeacon has got a mission community leaders group that has been meeting, and we've committed to meet with each other 3 times a year. And I think that's where that sort of work will go. But I'd also want to say that the way we're doing it is not necessarily the way other people are going to do it. This was right for us. The model that we've got is right for us, but this model wouldn't work in a town. So the things that we've done, the practice that we've done in terms of how we've got there possibly is right, the process, but the actual model, I suspect, will be very different depending on where you are. And I would want to say that very strongly. just because we've done it this way doesn't mean everybody should actually look like the Binsey team. It is exciting. It's rejuvenating that actually we're going to do something differently. It's nice to look at something and think, well, off we go again.